If you're a health or life coach who has multiple offers in your coaching business, but your business is starting to feel a bit messy and you're not sure what to do with all of these amazing things that you've created, then today's episode of the show is for you. Together we're going to look at how you can organise your coaching business and all of your offers. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help heart-centered and highly sensitive health and life coaches get more clients, grow their businesses and live the best lives while they do it. And today on the show we're talking all about how to organise a coaching business that has multiple offers that may or may not all be working for you. Now, this episode of the show is absolutely drawn on my experience as someone who has a lot of offers in my business that I have created and built up over a number of years. This is slightly more of a established coach kind of topic. You know, if you're a newer coach, you maybe don't have as many products and services and courses and things created, but hopefully it is still going to be relevant, because ultimately what we're talking about is how do you streamline, simplify, organise your coaching business, especially if you are someone who, you know, is very creative, multi-passionate, likes to create things, follows trends in the online business space, which we're all going to get into all of that juicy stuff. When you are someone who has multiple offers in your business, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. It's easy to feel like you don't want to miss out on all the stuff that you've created. You don't want that to become wasted. You know, it's really easy to second guess yourself and wonder what you should keep, what should go, all of that kind of stuff. And again, we're going to dive into all of that today. So this has really been prompted by a process that I've been going through in my own business, and that has just made me reflect on the way that I'm looking at it with my stuff, why I've got a business that has a lot of offers in it. And we're going to talk through the process that I've gone through, but also some things for you to think about if you do have more than one offer or more than a handful of offers in your coaching business, and you want to start thinking about how you can be a bit more strategic with what it is that you've got, but also make the most use of all of the things that you've created and spent your time and energy putting into place. I think this is a really common space to get into when you are someone who is highly sensitive, heart-centered, multi-passionate, because we will tend to look at what's going on in the wider coaching industry. We're very creative, we'll follow trends. We'll also want to be doing things that are designed to help us basically generate more income and work less, because I think that's what a lot of us want. So it's really natural to end up with a lot of things going on. And again, today we're going to explore all of the different threads of that and how to actually be okay with letting stuff go and organise what is left. And this isn't just about courses, programs, services. This is also about having lots of freebies, lots of lead magnets, lots of low ticket offers, all of that kind of stuff. So even if you don't have, you know, maybe lots of actual things for sale, maybe you've got loads of freebies, this is also going to be helpful for you too. So how did we get here? How have so many of us coaches got businesses with multiple courses, freebies, products, services, etc. going on? Now, I think this is really, really interesting what to talk about. And obviously, I think my business, dare I say it's an extreme case? I don't know if it's that much of an extreme case. I should have actually counted before I did this episode of the show, but I must have upwards of 20, maybe getting into 30 different paid things and free things, probably getting up to 40 when we include some of the free things as well. There's a lot of stuff in there, and I have spent a lot of time putting my heart and soul into creating this stuff, and therefore it makes it quite difficult to then think about letting some of that stuff go and not having it available, or whatever it is that I might want to do with it. So, you know, how do we get to this space? I know that I'm not alone in this. You know, my business might be an extreme case, but I know I'm definitely not the only one. So what has led us to get to this point? Over the last few years in the online business space, there has been significant trends towards low ticket offers. So having multiple low ticket entry level offers, having multiple freebies, and also maybe having low ticket memberships as well. And I think that's one of the things that's caused a lot of us to have multiple offers. There's also been the kind of bundles trend as well. And I think to participate in bundles, you naturally need to have some kind of self-study, one-to-many offer available. So that's another thing that's driven this. And I also think if you are someone who resonates with being multi-passionate, it's very, very easy to want to keep creating new things. And, you know, again, that can be absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be an issue that has to be solved. It's not a problem to be solved. if that's just who you are, but it can lead to you having many products and services that kind of gets a bit messy and confusing. Another driver of this as well is that I think as coaches we were told quite significantly, from lots of different angles, and I've said this as well, is that in order to leverage our time we need to have more one-to-many offers. Now again, where that has been taken by a lot of people has been towards the courses, the self-study, the memberships, all of that kind of thing. So again, there's been all of this push towards having lots and lots of different things, and it's not in its own right a bad thing. It's only a negative thing if it becomes unmanageable for you, if your business feels confusing, if you feel overwhelmed, if it's making selling your stuff difficult. I'm going to come on to all of this, then it is something to look at. But if you've got multiple products and services and you're okay with that, then that's amazing. But if you are, like I have been, feeling a bit overwhelmed and like everything is just a bit of a mess, then it can be a great thing to start to look at this and think about how do we actually take all of the stuff that we've lovingly created and streamline it. Like I say, this is a problem only if it becomes a problem. So you can have multiple offers and that might be fine for you, but it becomes a problem when you are feeling overwhelmed, when you're not sure what to sell, when your customers and your ideal clients are confused by what it is that you're offering, and when it causes your business to not make sense anymore, which is not necessarily where I think I've been, but I think sometimes you want to have a sense that everything kind of fits in the same world. And, obviously we are going to look at that in a second. But when it starts to feel unmanageable, when it starts to feel overwhelming, when you're worried that your ideal clients are going to find this overwhelming as well, then we have a reason to want to take some action. Also, a lot of these products and services, they will serve as energy leaks. So this is something that I've identified in my business, is that when I have all of these things there, that you can't possibly be selling them all of the time. And yes, there's things that you can do in the background, and yes, there's funnels, and yes, there's evergreen sales, and there's all sorts of stuff you can do in the background. So that withstanding, they are, for me anyway, have felt like energy leaks. So my energies haven't really put into all of these little places, and that is not useful when I want to focus on actually getting results. So again, you get to this point where naturally you are ready to start looking at your offer suite, because ultimately this is what we're talking about, is really looking at your offer suite and making sure that it makes sense for you and your business, and of course your ideal clients too. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to audit all of the different things that you have available for people to download for free. And I'm including freebies because I think this is an important part of the conversation. Anything for people to buy, any services, etc. Have a big audit. Now, I sat down with the amazing, my very, very good business bestie, Michelle Ponver, who has been a guest on the show before. She's amazing. She has strategy sessions that will help you untangle your brain around stuff like this. And it was so valuable. So we sat down together. We had a massive list of all of the different things that I have in my business, not just freebies, not just courses, also my services and things like that, but also I wanted to capture some of the things that I've created for free as conversion events as part of my launches, because I've done quite a few of them. So it was really helpful to just capture all of my IP, my intellectual property, all of the things that I've created in my business, which is substantial. Like, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. And capturing all of that together was really, really helpful. And then we went through a process of identifying what to let go of, what to keep, where to put things. So how do we start making decisions about what stays and what goes, or what happens to any of the things that we've got? There's a few different things that were going through my head as I went through that process that you might find helpful as well. So I think one of the things is this something that is still relevant right now and is actually teaching something that works right now? I think that's a really, really key one straight off the bat. Is this in alignment with who you are at the moment and what your business is about, or has that slipped into a different kind of realm? Is it still in alignment? Is it something that has been selling? Like, have you actually sold very many of these, or has it not sold at all? You need to be honest with yourself about that. And also think about the reason, like, has it not sold because you haven't actually put any effort into selling it? Which I think is really important too, because sometimes we can have an amazing offer, and the reason that it hasn't sold is not because the offer itself isn't great, not because the offer itself isn't meeting the needs of your ideal client, but because you've just literally not put any effort into selling it. So kind of a tricky one to think about, but really think about that. Ask yourself that question. Can you talk about this thing and feel enthusiastic and excited about it? Because if you can't, that might be a reason to let that go. Does it feel like it fits with the theme of your business right now? And also, does this actually serve your ideal clients in a way that they need it to? So once you've asked yourself some of those questions, you can really start to look at what you've got. And what you'll find is that some things, it's really easy to know that actually, yeah, this needs to either be completely removed from what I've got. It might be absorbed into another offer. I'll talk about what that looks like in my business in a second. It might need to be reworked. You know, there's all sorts of different things that you can do with it. Or you might recognise that it has amazing content, but actually having it in a product for sale isn't quite right, but there's other ways to use that content. There's other ways to make use of what it is that you've got. So you kind of go through this process and you'll be left with a list basically of what's left. Now, again, I think one of the things for me that I was thinking about in my business was, how do these things fit together to create a bit of a journey for people? How do these things fit together? And how do they fit together in a way that feels like me and that feels like the way that I want to be supporting people? So going through all of those questions, looking through your list. I mean, again, I created a database in Notion. Me and Michelle sat down, we went through it all. She helped work this up into a actual like visual map, what was left. And we kind of went through, and what was really useful with going through it in a visual map and connecting the dots together was that there was things that I really had wanted to keep for sale, like publicly for sale, because I think they're amazing and I'm really excited about them and they're in alignment, but they just didn't fit with what else was there. They felt really disjointed, and I think it would have made it difficult for me to really actively sell those things. And also, one of the other things that we thought about was, you know, what are my general business goals right now? Like, you know, what's in alignment with that? And what does this offer suite need to look like in order for me to really focus on the things that I want to actually move and change in my business? So went through this process, did the audit, and then the next thing that you need to do is decide what to do with what you've got left after you've gone through this audit. And really this stage is about, how do you build an offer suite that is going to work for you and your business and your clients, that is not going to be overwhelming, that is going to be manageable, and that you're going to feel excited about selling and showing up in. So like I said, what we did was we came up with this visual map. We could really see how the different things connected together. Now, again, one of the things that I will say in terms of business model is that in my business, I have my one-to-one mentoring, which is the way that you work with me one-to-one. I'm going to talk about that in a second because there are some big changes coming to that. And then I have Wholehearted Business, which is my signature 12-month group coaching program, which also has a significant one-to-one element if you choose to upgrade. Now, what I love about Wholehearted Business, amongst many, many, many things, because it's an amazing offer, is that it does have a lot of content in it. And now it means that I have an offer where I can put all of this stuff, and I know that it's not getting wasted. I know that it's all still very, very good content, very, very relevant, very, very helpful. But I know that I can put it, all of that, I can gather up all of my stuff and put it into Wholehearted Business. And that has made this process a lot easier for me. And it just makes it work. So all these little things that I've created that are not going to be part of my main offer suite going forward, I know that they are still going to be really helpful to everyone inside Wholehearted Business. And it's just good to know that I have a way to profit from all of that work that is still helping my clients, and it makes sense for my business. So that was a really big helpful thing, I think, was knowing that all of that could be moved over. There were some things that were no longer relevant, some things where my approach to certain topics has shifted. So for example, I have talked a lot about blogging in the past. I still do talk about blogging. However, that is within the context of the Searchable Show, the framework that I teach around a foundational marketing system that is social media free or low social media if you want it to be. So I don't talk about blogging in its own right anymore, because it's not as relevant, but it doesn't mean that anything that I've taught about blogging before isn't still really, really useful, because it's still applicable in so many different ways. So all of this stuff was going on, and really we looked at how the different things connected together, including the freebies, because ultimately what you don't want is a freebie that just doesn't really lead anywhere. You want a freebie or a lead magnet that leads into something that makes sense for you and your business. And I realised that I had lead magnets that were just there for the sake of it and that weren't really very strategic. So that was one part of the process that we went through as well, was thinking, you know, yes, I do need to have multiple freebies that make sense for a lot of different reasons. And again, what I love about this process was that this is really about following through the thread. And this is one of my things I don't know if this is a bit of a neurodivergent thing, but my brain sees the whole thing, and this is what I teach in Wholehearted Business, by the way, sees the whole spectrum, which is your messaging and your niche, through to your content, through to your freebies, through to your offers, through to your sales, which is why I teach all of this in Wholehearted Business in this actual pathway, because it's very, very difficult for me to teach about these things separately. So that's another one of the things that has helped me make the decisions that I've made about what I am going to have in my offer suite going forward, is because I think there's certain things that need to be taught in this very holistic way, that can't be shortcutted and that can't be bite-sized, that kind of need to be put together in this way. So all of this stuff was kind of going into this process. It was really, really great. And yeah, I would absolutely encourage you to think about your offer suite in the same way. Like, what is it that you confidently can teach on in small bits? What needs to be a bigger thing? Really think about it from that point of view too. And I'd love to be able to sit here and say, you should have an offer suite that looks like X, Y, and Z. But really that just depends on your business. And again, this is something that I support people with in my one-to-one mentoring program. So what I would say maybe is like a starting point is that, and I have taught this kind of strategy before, is I think it's a good idea to have about 3 different offers. An entry level one, and that can be a course program. It can also be like a one-off call, all sorts of different things that can look like. A kind of mid-level offer, although I would say out of all of them, that's probably the one that you could, if you didn't want to have that, you don't have to have that. And then a main premium offer that is your profit center. So I have taught about this in my business model training, my free training, which I'm actually going to link to. And this is one of the things that is staying, actually. So I am going to link to that, although it will be changing up a little bit, but I will link to that in the description. Go and check it out if you want a better understanding of how your business model needs to look like for a profitable, sustainable coaching business, because I cover that in that little mini masterclass, mini training. So do go and check that out. So that might be a good thing to think about. I mean, in my business, it's going to look different. I've got kind of a couple of like main offers, like bigger, chunkier offers. I'm going to have a couple of things underneath. There's a new thing that I want to create that fills a gap, because that's another thing that you might want to do in this process, is identify, what are the gaps that is left over after these things are there to make this make sense as a suite of offers. That's another thing. But yeah, get together your offer suite, decide what that needs to look like, fill any gaps, put things together, and you're well on your way to having an amazing offer suite that is really going to help your business be successful. And then the final thing to say is, because again, we are multi-passionate, we are heart-centered, all of those good things, you will want to create more stuff. You will want to create more stuff. 100%. I want to create more stuff. I love creating, like, the process of creating trainings, masterclasses, courses and programs. That's my happy place. I love it. However, we've got to be careful about doing that, because this is again how we get into the pattern of creating stuff but not really selling it very well, and we're spending loads of time investing in doing all this stuff but not really selling it, all that thing. So this is where for me, I'm like, okay, I need to hold myself accountable. I need to work with my coaches and mentors and ask them to keep me accountable, my business besties to keep me accountable to not be doing that. But I need to find other ways to feel creative in my business. Now, again, I would say actually, I think that since I started the Wholehearted Business Show, it doesn't feel quite as much of a thing for me, because I feel like I'm being creative every week when I create this show. So it's not as much of a pull as what it used to be. And again, depending on the offers that are left over, like if you have a membership, for example, where you are creating content on a regular basis, like that will do the trick. I've got a Wholehearted Business that I can put new things into if I want to, but it's just recognizing that can be a pattern that might not actually be very helpful for you in your business. So keeping everything tidy, keeping everything organized and streamlined, that's part of this as well. Like, it's the after, you can do all the work, audit all your stuff, let stuff go, retire stuff, update stuff, create new stuff to fill the gaps, all of that. But you're going to fall into more problems if you don't address like why you might be creating the new things. And like I say, I will hold my hands up. I have definitely followed some of the trends in the industry, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The trends for a reason, usually because they work at the time. And I think we've got to be experimental and fun and allowed to do all of those things in our business. Like, at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want. You can have a business that has 50 products if you want. I'm not telling you that that's wrong. What I am saying is that if that feels overwhelming to you, and if you've got a business that feels overwhelming with too many offers, then you might want to have a little look and change things up like I have done. Just to wrap up what my stuff is looking like, and I haven't actually finished the process yet, but I wanted to get this down while it was in my head. One of the things that is changing, which is quite significant, is that I will no longer be offering a 3 to 4 month option for my one-to-one mentoring package. So one of the things that I made that decision around was that I feel like I'm much better placed to support people one-to-one over a longer period of time. Wholehearted Business exists and offers something quite similar, and while Wholehearted Business only opens twice a year, there's options there for people to participate in that program if they wish. It feels like I really want to just put my energy in my one-to-one packages to be in working with people over a longer period of time. So what that means is this is the last opportunity that you will have to work with me one-to-one in what my current mentoring package looks like. So if you have thought about working with me one-to-one, even if it's not right away, like if you get in touch with me over the next few weeks and say, I'm really interested in this, I can put a hold on it for you. But if you want to work with me over a shorter period of time, like the 3 to 4 month option in my one-to-one mentoring package, let me know. Get in touch, we can have a chat about it. Obviously, I never ever do any hard, icky sales. It's always a very, very lovely conversation about whether or not it is the right thing for us to work together, whether or not I feel that I can actually help you do the things that you want to do in your business. We always have that conversation in our discovery call. So do get in touch if you think that that's going to be something that you might want to explore, but this is the last chance. I'll probably close that up the end of May. I'll let that option go and then it won't be available anymore. Basically, it'll just be the big, long, chunky package. There we have it. So do get in touch if you are a more established coach who is ready to get some actual hands-on one-to-one support in your business. Let me know. But I hope that's been helpful, talking through the process that I've gone through in my business to streamline things down. Very much still in process of making all these changes, but it's really exciting. I think it's really, really wonderful to start thinking about, how can we make our businesses work for us in a new way? And you know what, maybe it's that spring vibe. So, we're right in the middle of spring and I felt like doing a big spring clean. So do look out. There will be some things coming up available on a special offer. Not loads, because not a lot is actually disappearing or going anywhere. It's all going into Wholehearted Business. So keep your eyes open for that. And like I say, if you are interested in working with me as a one-to-one mentor, then that shorter term option is only going to be available for a little while longer. So please do get in touch. Anyway, guys, I really hope that has been helpful. Do let me know your thoughts on this episode of the show. Pop me a comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Pop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at wholeheartedly Laura over on Instagram. And I'll be back next week. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.